Association, Veterans Association, and we have with us Kwame Lillard and Professor Gloria McKissack from Tennessee State University, both participants in the civil rights movement. Professor McKissack, I think we left off with Professor Lillard talking about some of his experiences. Let's look at some of your first involvement with the civil rights movement. I mean, where did it start? It started at Tennessee State University, but when did you, for the first time, sit in at a place? How did that become, how did you become involved in that?
Oh, the first time was at Wilson Quick, which was like a drugstore lunch counter establishment on Church Street. Again, we were recruited from the student union by Freedom Riders who were expelled from the university. Now the university recently recognized them, and they have their doctorate, honorary doctorate degrees, but at that time they were expelled students, and it was quite a controversy around that. But we went down to First Baptist Church for very brief training. Now, actually, the original people who were in the sit-ins got very extensive training. That's one thing about Nashville. Dr. King said that himself, that Nashville was the best, most well-trained, prepared city in the country for sit-in demonstrations. And of course, sit-ins is just sort of an umbrella term for just all kinds of nonviolent activities that can take place to put an end to injustice in the country. Actually, Dr. King identified more than 250 techniques that can be used in a nonviolent manner called Keynesian nonviolence, and the sit-ins is just one, but eventually students will be involved in sit-ins and stand-ins and walk-ins and just facing just any place, anything that was involved with segregation. And back then everything from A to Z in the country was segregated, including the school for the blind. But anyway, they were well trained by Lawson and others at not only First Baptist Church, which Kwame was talking about, but Clark Memorial, I think, is where they really focus more than any other place on training those students and practicing for nonviolence. So when Greensboro took place and those students at North Carolina A&T demonstrated, and they called for Nashville to support, Nashville was well prepared to step up to the plate, and ended up actually being the first city to desegregate their lunch counter. So that's part of the uniqueness of Nashville in terms of the civil rights movement. Myself, however, I came after Lawson and others had left, and sort of picked up the wand or picked up the torch and tried to continue what those vanguards had started. So my training was very little, but they set the stage, and because they did it so well, and as far as we know, no one in Nashville ever struck back. I mean, they were totally nonviolent and committed to that philosophy. So we understood what it was that we were supposed to do. So I went down to First Baptist, and maybe they spent 10 or 15 minutes, and I got it. I understood. And we went down to Wilson Quick and went in the lunch counters there, and of course they refused to serve us and soaped up the windows, and in fact they even put on the window Congo in parade. You know, we were the Congo, we were jungle bunnies, you know, and we're just a group of students, you know, trying to do our best to change the world, change Nashville, change our lives. But anyway, they were dragged out one at a time and tossed on the streets. In fact, pictures of what I'm describing are on the Tennessee newspaper's website. They're doing a series right now on the civil rights movement, and they can pull up those those
All
photos.
those images.
You know, and it's right there. But we were dragged out, and I was the last one dragged out and thrown on the street that day, my first demonstration. And that's when I got my commitment. And I knew from then on that this was something I really wanted to do. I didn't know for sure until I was thrown out on that street and felt the humiliation of the indignity of that.
You know, Kwame, if you look at some of the things that I think most folks understand about the movement itself, what can you tell young people today, over the last couple of minutes that we have here, what can you tell the young people today about becoming involved in this fighting against injustices, whether it's the sit-in movement or whatever movement? Say something in reference to that.
I think they need to know the history of our country, that the country didn't just happen to get better. It just, no one woke up and waved a magic wand and allowed you to try on clothes at a shoe store. No store just decided to take down the policy and make people love each other. It took a lot of sacrifice from people who lost their education, lost their jobs, got beat up bad, spit on. It took a lot of young folks to take risks. A lot of these young folks came from towns first time in college. Mama scrubbing floors to get you in college, and yet you're downtown courting arrest, embarrassing your family, embarrassing your teachers. And nothing happens good unless you're willing to sacrifice. And you have to look in the mirror and say, am I the person to do that? And can I find somebody that's like-minded that I can trust, that we can have an agreement to continue until we see some results? You have to have patience. You have to have a sense of, there'll be people who will doubt you. There will be people who will say you're betraying your Christian faith. There will be folks who call you communist. They'll call you an atheist. They'll call you all kind of names. They'll call you folks who don't love America. And if you can't take that, then you don't understand what change is about. Nothing good happens. As they say, the wide road is for fools. The narrow, hard road is for folks who are committed, who have a legacy to honor. We had so many people who have suffered in this town. It was time to change that. And you can't change hate with hate. You have to change hate with love. And that's something the kids need to learn about. Confrontations that always have to end up in a fight, a physical fight. Fighting with your mind and heart is a lot better.
Very good. And of course, we're going to take this second commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Professor Gloria McKissack from Tennessee State University and LLillard, who is the president of the African Association in Nashville, African Cultural Alliance in Nashville, and both have given us some information in reference to the civil rights movement in Nashville, especially the sit-in movement. Let's talk